Welcome to Ontario Cold Cases, the podcast, brought to you by Nickel Investigations, the podcast that delves deep into the unsolved mysteries that haunt our province. I'm Jay Nickel, a private investigator with Nickel Investigations, and your host and guide in this journey through the chilling tales that left investigators baffled and communities in search of answers. In each episode, we'll unearth the forgotten stories of Ontario's cold cases, exploring the details, the evidence, and the individuals involved with the eye of a private investigator who specializes in cold case investigations. From the mysterious disappearances to the perplexing murders, our mission is to shine a light in these cases and hopefully bring justice to those who have long awaited closure. But we can't do it alone. Join us as we navigate the twists and turns of these enigmatic cases. We'll speak with experts, law enforcement officials, and sometimes even the families of the victims, all in the pursuit of truth. So buckle up and prepare to dive headfirst into the world of unresolved mysteries. Together we'll keep the flame of hope burning for justice, one episode at a time. Thank you for tuning in to the Ontario Cold Cases, the podcast. Let's begin our quest for answers. Hello and welcome to Ontario Cold Cases, the podcast, Season 1, Episode 6. I'm Melinda Sheppit and Sophie Fillion, and a serial killer in Ottawa operating since at least 1990. I'm your host, Jay Nickel of Nickel Investigations. The headline 11 years ago in 2012 said it all. Ottawa police warned of pattern in prostitute murders. Was a serial killer targeting prostitutes? It had been over 30 years since Melinda Sheppit's nearly naked body was found next to a dumpster in downtown Ottawa parking lot on September 30th, 1990. She'd been strangled and one of her snakeskin stilettos was missing. The killing of a prostitute doesn't always rock a city, but that one did. Melinda Sheppit was just 16 years old. She was beautiful, she came from a good family, and police said she'd been working the streets for just 3 weeks before her demise. They also said an arrest was imminent. More than 3 decades later, her homicide remains unsolved. But there are tantalizing hints of a turning point in the case, and perhaps in the cases of other sex workers who have lost their lives while plying their trade in Ottawa. Police Chief Vern White in January 2012 told local sex workers that a serial killer may have been operating there since at least 1990. At the time, there were 6 unsolved murders of sex trade workers in Ottawa since 1990. Since then, some have been solved. I believe 2 may very well be connected. That of Melinda Sheppit and Sophie Fillion. Melinda Sheppit. Melinda Sheppit's nearly naked body was found next to a dumpster in downtown parking lot on September 30th, 1990 in Ottawa. She'd been strangled and one of her snakeskin stilettos was missing. She was last seen near Clarence and Dalhousie Streets in the Byward Market area of Ottawa. Some reports say she was seen getting into a car. Only days before, the 16-year-old had called her relatives in Oakville and told them she was going to return to the Toronto area. Till 2 years before her murder, Sheppit lived with her parents, her sister, and 2 brothers in Oakville. When her father, Peter Sheppit, got a job as a security guard in the capital, the family moved to a townhouse in Ottawa's Hunt Club area. He and his wife, Diane, split up in late 1989, with Diane taking the 2 youngest siblings back to Oakville and Melinda and her brother, Michael, staying in Ottawa. Sheppit turned to prostitution 3 weeks before her death. A psychological profile said the killer was likely an introverted night owl, a 25 to 30-year-old who still lived with his parents and had little self-confidence. Melinda, a student at St. Patrick's High School, was pregnant at the time of her death. Friends and family said she was confused and unhappy, and a woman who knew her said she was living with her pimp, who wouldn't let her come home each night unless she had earned $600. Police interviewed one man for 10 hours, but released him. Sophie Fillion. Sophie Fillion, 23, was an occasional sex worker whose body was only wearing a slip and was stuffed into 2 garbage bags and left in a Westboro parking lot in early December of 1993. The remains had been there several days. She too had been strangled. The mother of 2 young children had turned to prostitution to support her children and unemployed boyfriend. The 23-year-old prostitute and cocaine addict had been reported missing on November 16, 1993. Fillion was 5'5" and 130 pounds with shoulder-length wavy brown hair. She was last seen wearing a gray 3/4 length coat, black spandex pants, and black calf-length boots. Fillion was seen leaving her Vanier home on Mazenot Street on November 15, 1995 at 10 p.m. Police believe she was going to the Byward Market to look for Johns. She'd been missing for more than 2 weeks and was last seen getting into a white delivery van downtown near Kent and Laurier Streets. Police later said they narrowed the investigation to a single suspect, but no arrest has been made. Up next, the investigation. This episode is brought to you by Nickel Investigations. The investigation. In 1993, another woman was picked up on the streets and beaten. Her assailant, who was scared away from the scene by a passerby, reportedly told the woman he was Melinda Sheppit's killer. Nothing came of that. A few months later, yet another prostitute was attacked. She was choked but not killed, then dumped in Hull. Despite the similarity to the Sheppit case, police could not make a link between the cases. A few years later, Lucy, a street worker, told police, "This one time a client picked me up, dragged me into an alleyway. He knocked my head on the brick wall and strangled me till I went under. I had black and blue marks on my neck for about 3 weeks. I wasn't able to swallow. He left me there thinking he had killed me. A couple of weeks later I saw him trying to pick another girl up. I was shaking. I called the police from a restaurant anonymously. He got arrested. The police were already looking for him. He was the guy who had put a girl, her body in a bag in an alley. The whole time he was bashing my head against the wall and strangling me, he was yelling, 'I hate hookers, I hate sluts, I hate women.' Despite both reports, no arrest was ever made. Up next, the suspects. The suspects. Camille Cleroux. One theory is that convicted serial killer from Ottawa by the name of Camille Cleroux also killed Melinda Sheppit and Sophie Fillion. Cleroux worked at a 24-hour diner in the Byward Market called Mellows. It was a popular place for local sex trade workers to get a bite to eat after their shifts. Cleroux could easily have met Melinda and Sophie there. Camille Cleroux, 58, pleaded guilty in an Ottawa court in 2012 to the first-degree murder of neighbor Paula LeClaire and the second-degree murder in the deaths of Jean Rock and Lise Roy, his former wives. Marc Leduc. Another possibility is Marc Leduc, who was found guilty in 2016 of killing Pamela Kosmak in 2008 and Leanne Lawson in 2011. Pamela Kosmak was found beaten to death near a bike path close to Britannia Park in June 2008. Leanne Lawson was found dead in a parking lot in Ottawa's Lower Town neighborhood in September 2011. Both were known to have been involved in the sex trade industry. In November 2012, a 19-year-old woman was attacked by a man wielding a knife while she was sleeping in her bed in West Ottawa. The woman was able to break free and stab the man with his own knife. Leduc was arrested for aggravated sexual assault and later charged in 2 separate murder cases from years before. The blood left at the scene of the sexual assault contained the same genetic material as the DNA left on the bodies of Kosmak and Lawson. Michael Wayne McGray. Serial killer Michael Wayne McGray was convicted in 2000 and took no time in claiming to have killed a number of people over the years in Halifax, St. John, New Brunswick, Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, Calgary, Vancouver, and Seattle. One of his claims was the murder of a prostitute in Ottawa. All claims were investigated, though few claims proved truthful. Certainly not the Ottawa claim. Mark McCaskill. On the morning of September 17, 2006, a man's body was fished out of the quiet waters of the Rideau Canal, not far from the Pretoria Bridge in downtown Ottawa. Identification found on the body in the name of Mark McCaskill led police to a basement apartment in the north end of Leon Street, where a suicide note was found. McCaskill's name is known on the Sex Professionals of Canada Bad Client List, a lengthy charting of ongoing situations and past run-ins that warn hookers to be on the alert regarding certain individuals, and includes the pictures of various men who have allegedly crossed the line. Up next, my theory. This episode is brought to you by Nickel Investigations. My theory. Some believe Mark McCaskill is the most likely suspect and was apparently the main person of interest according to the police. Others believed he was bullied, ridiculed, and harassed into killing himself. I don't believe McCaskill was involved. Martin LeDuc does seem the most plausible of the suspects, though I believe the murders of Melinda Sheppit and Sophie Fillion were committed by a yet unidentified individual. I also don't believe this person just stopped. I've yet to confirm if there are any DNA forensics that were recovered from either murder. So thank you for listening to the weekly Ontario Cold Cases, the podcast, brought to you by Nickel Investigations. And please consider subscribing at Patreon, Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts. And our next episode will be out Sunday, November 19th.